Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The Dodgy WBA is up to its old tricks again, parachuting in Chris Arreola high in its rankings, and he does not deserve to be there on merit. Hasn't had a win in over a year in the heavyweight division, but we'll come to that. Also, Charles Martin gets a high ranking as well. But starting at the top, and just before I get into this, so this is the first update for the WBA in terms of its top 15 in 3 months. So the last update before this one, which was June 30th, was the 30th of March, or was it the 31st of March? It was the end of March anyway. But starting at the top, no change. Trevor Bryan, whose fight with Manuel Charr, because of the pandemic, fell over. So we'll have to see what happens with that. It just seems that these interim and regular titles just cursed or something. We just can't seem to get these guys to fight off against each other for the titles that no one really cares about. But at number 2, we do have a change because Deontay Wilder is gone. And that's most likely because he has confirmed he's taking that rematch with Tyson Fury, or third fight I should say, that trilogy fight, so he's going to be fighting for a title. Alexander Povetkin, later in the rankings, he's also gone altogether. Same reason, because he'll be fighting the WBC interim champion, Dillian Whyte. But so Alexander Usyk, he moves up one place to fill what was occupied by Deontay Wilder previously. Number 3, and this is where it gets interesting because it really does become the PBC heavyweight hit parade. You've got Luis Ortiz at number 3, seemingly well positioned for some sort of tilt at a title or something within the WBA. It's hard to say, but we've been down this road before for Luis Ortiz. As I covered off in a video some time ago, Luis Ortiz had been in and out of the WBA rankings searching for a title opportunity for years and years and years. And obviously he did win an interim title at one point, but he failed a drugs test that was against Latif Kiyodi. But he threw his lot in quite hard with the WBA, and it never really paid off, and now he's almost back up at the top of the heap. And remembering, this guy is coming off a loss in his last fight against Deontay Wilder, so for a guy who's been losing, he's doing well to still continually climb the rankings. Andy Ruiz Jr. also coming off a loss, he's up one place from the last rankings update. Adam Kovnatsky, he is also up one, so basically Wilder drops down, Ortiz, Ruiz and Kovnatsky all up one spot. All of those guys, Ortiz, Ruiz Jr. and Kovnatsky, coming off losses too. But Charles Martin, he's coming off a win. So it's interesting because the previous update, which was at the end of March, Charles Martin didn't make it into that update, and after the sort of boxing got suspended pretty much for a couple of months, the WBA, along with the other sanctioning bodies, suspended their rankings. But he had a win, and that was on the Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury rematch undercard. A good knockout win over Gerald Washington, February the 22nd. Didn't make it into the end of February rankings, didn't make it into their end of March rankings, but somehow now, 3 months on, he is in at number 6, so he just slots right in there over the top of a number of names further down. So yeah, it's interesting. Also, number 7, and this is where it really gets quite weird and bizarre, Chris Arreola, number 7. So he comes in there not having had a win in the heavyweight division for more than a year. Remembering he lost to Adam Kovnatsky at in the second half of 2019. The last time he had a win was in March 2019, and that was against a relatively unknown heavyweight. So Chris Arreola is doing incredibly well to come in this high. But what this signals to me, and I guess probably to anyone who's got their eyes open here, is he's about to be fed to someone above him. And we know that Andy Ruiz Jr. has been talking about a potential Chris Arreola fight. So with Arreola coming in here, it pretty much seems like it's going to be a lock. He'll be fighting Ruiz next, or at least one of the other guys that's above him, Adam Kovnatsky, Charles Martin, or Luis Ortiz being the other options. But Kovnatsky's been there, done that, got the postcard. Probably not going to be him for a rematch. So Arreola comes in, and it reminds me of that situation of that fight for Adam Kovnatski actually earlier this year, because originally the WBA parachuted in Christian Hammer. That was about number 6 spot. This was in January or February. And then all of a sudden he was changed out, swapped out. Robert Helenius comes in. So clearly there had been an opponent change. It became Robert Helenius. They put him in there and say, look, this is an eliminator. So I wouldn't be surprised, whoever Arreola ends up facing, most likely Andy Ruiz Jr., that the WBA say this will be a WBA eliminator. But if it is, what does that really actually mean? Because the last guy who won an eliminator, Robert Helenius, got upgraded to WBA Gold Champion. And we have no idea what that really means. Who is the next guy that is in line for the WBA mandatory? Remembering that they also have Manuel Cha as the regular champion. You also have Trevor Bryan as the interim champion and Robert Helenius as the gold champion. There is no clarity about who or what next in terms of the WBA mandatory. But it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if the WBA comes out and says, hey, Andy Ruiz Jr., Chris Arreola, that is going to be a final eliminator to be the next mandatory. I can see it happening. The next guy, and this is where it sort of ends up stabilizing to the previous rankings. Michael Hunter, no change at 8. He doesn't have a fight scheduled. He's calling out a number of guys seemingly getting no traction at the moment. Derek Chisora, he holds firm. Apparently meant to be fighting Alexander Usyk towards the end of the year. We'll see what happens there. Kubrat Pulev, he's at number 10. He's meant to face Anthony Joshua. So it does make me wonder, why hasn't he been dropped? But you have the likes of Alexander Povetkin and Deontay Wilder having been dropped, given that Pulev is a lock for a title fight. I mean, it's hard to know. Sometimes it is that. Other times they may not have paid fees. Or I mean, it's the WBA. They will do anything and everything, and it's not. Or they move in mysterious ways. Number 11, Ajit Kabial, no change, and also another PBC fighter here at number 12, F.A. Jagba, and I would say he's earned that position on merit, given some of his recent wins. Decent win a few months ago against Razvan Kajanu. See, he's done more than a guy like Chris Arreola, remembering he beat Ali Erendemirezhin in 2019, Iago Kaladze, and then Razvan Kajanu. Chris Arreola has had a loss against Adam Kovnatski, gets a number 7 ranking. It's bizarre. Number 13, holding firm, Sergey Kuzmin, who's going to be facing Martin Bakole soon. That's a bit of a crossroads fight because Sergey Kuzmin needs a good win, needs to prove to the division that he's still a bit of a player. He's had a bit of a shaky last year or so. Mladen Malas and Freza Kendo rounding out number 14 and number 15. But the big move is this month. Charles Martin coming in at 6, Chris Arreola at 7. Deontay Wilder gone altogether, as is Alexander Povetkin. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.